Hello and good day, Jess.
Hello. Good
Hello.
day.
Good day to you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Nice.
How are you?
I'm very well. Do you like my sort of podcast studio-esque curtains?
I do. They're very luxurious almost.
Yeah.
VIP.
I'm not sure if it beats your Victorian mansion, but
Yes. Yeah, it's lovely to be able to stay somewhere so cool.
I guess you have sort of when we just talked about this, I thought, yeah, you have a thing for like sometimes you're memeing like, does anybody want to buy this old, very large house?
Yes. That's one of my memes. It's so true.
What do you want to? Why do you do that? What do you see behind these old, large houses?
Oh, well, I think like primarily I think it's a way out of the rent trap, the mortgage trap, actually. So yeah, so a very large house, like if you can share it and have a bedroom each, then the amount of money that you need is very low. And I love it when the numbers actually add up. So um, yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize compound debt interest is as bad as compound savings interest is good.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't realize how bad a mortgage is. Like you pay basically one third or one half on top of the asking price during the length of the mortgage, even on short mortgages because they charge you fees. Um,
Mm.
so I think like I think a lot of us would rather not be trapped by the system and so that we can do something else, right? Like even if it's very small, like benefit, like we could grow a few vegetables or volunteer at the community center or spend even more time on Twitter talking about how to protect each other from mimetic viruses, like
The usual.
the usual stuff, normal day-to-day life. Yeah, so like I mean I've perceived for a long time, and some people don't see this as bad, but I do, which is the work until you're too old to even able to function, in order to simply have somewhere safe to live. And that you only complete the purchase of the thing when you have to then sell it for your own care home care.
Mm.
So it's an odd way to entangle a citizen. I mean, it's a very effective way to entangle a citizen into constant busy work, until they die, because entanglement means less like questioning and overthrowing authority and things like that.
Mm.
And stability has its place. But yeah,
Yeah.
so there's not that many ways out of it. But yeah, if you could buy like a bedroom in a shared house and it's only as much as what a personal loan would be rather than a mortgage. So here in the UK,
Ah.
personal loans are much smaller and they want you to pay them back and they penalize you for not paying them back. So
As opposed to the mortgage where you're like, oh, if you don't pay it back, we don't really mind. Just
yeah,
keep paying it, right? Like, yeah.
yeah, they're fine.
Hmm.
They're fine with that because then they get more interest. And if you do pay it back early, they give you fees because they wanted the fees over the years, right?
Sorry, this is
So
just some backwards ass shit. That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
what they're leveraging is not having the full amount in cash in this minute, right? Like, so if
Hmm.
you already have cash, you can easily make more and more and more. But if you don't have any, then you will pay more and more and more for not having any cash, like or money or liquidity.
Yeah.
So these houses are quite beautiful because the people who own them also don't have liquidity. They only have the value of the land, which you can't. There's only so much you can borrow against it, and these buildings. They take cash.
Wait,
So
sorry. Can you? I missed the your train there. Like, uh, wait. The houses are beautiful because. Can you explain that?
the situation is beautiful
Oh, these
because
old houses
these
that you're
old
talking
houses.
about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
someone who owns this old house does not have any liquidity either. They because the house costs money to maintain, and their only personal wealth is in the house. So you have to
Uh-huh.
sell the house to or mortgage the house, remortgage the house,
Hmm.
to maintain itself. So it's a liquidity problem on both sides. And so one of the solutions is yeah, if you can live together in community, which is what everybody says that they want, but when you ask them about it, they say, "Well, I actually want my own private house and my own private kitchen and my own private everything private, and then I want it to be in a field that's like 100 yards away from, someone else who has their own little cabin." Um, and that's okay. But I think that it's worth learning how to live in community where you have your own private bedroom, and you share the other things. Just the kitchen, like a shared kitchen, is a glorious thing, and I think people need to try it out. And effectively, you're trying it out for a very low cost. So yeah, whenever there's a house that has the number of bedrooms that's divisible by like a smallish amount of money, and it all adds up, like you're effectively only paying 2 years worth of rent in advance, 2 or 3 maximum, and then you're owning a group house.
And if you do it well, I think you might have some knowledge about that, because you're like implying sort of this cooperative buying scheme that I'm sure you can somehow legally make a legal image of that.
The legals
In
are
which
actually really difficult because people don't. I think they also don't want people to do this, but anyway, you definitely.
they don't want you to do this. Yes, yes.
No, yeah, it's
No, I understand. And what I was gonna say is that you can like you could then kind of sell yourself out of / buy yourself into the. I mean, you could then
yeah,
if the house is sort of split into rooms on paper at least, then you could also move out, and then the co-op can sell the room to somebody else, and there
yes,
could be a sort of continuity there, right? I can see that.
yes, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And and you could sublet as well, but what I found in a group house is uh it's the current members of the house should choose the subletter. But once that's done, the sublet person can just pay the person who owns the room, even if the person who owns the room is away for
Mhm.
years. Like they don't even have to sell it. They can just
Right. Rent.
keep their stake, and they can even like get, their expenses covered via that method.
I like
Um,
that kind of thinking.
yeah, well, and then so if you can take this far enough, see, this is me. I'm always 10 steps ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like once you take that far enough, you kind of could have it sort of doesn't matter who in your network bought which house. Because what you could have is that, a group of 10 of you have bought one bedroom in a 10-bedroom house, let's say. But not all of you live in that bedroom. Like many of you are like traveling or going elsewhere, or, taking a break or whatever it is. But that room can be in use. So my imagination is that there are like 6 or 7 people that are just sat around doing their core thing. They're doing their job, or they're raising their kids or whatever else. But there's a sort of a whole section of the group house in your house that isn't currently resident because they're traveling. And I think that would be true of other group houses. So if there's a group house in New York, like a 12-bedroom, I'm thinking 12 to 15, because you need 6 to 8 like people present to keep the house running, in my opinion, without too much burden. Like one person to cook per night is pretty good. And yeah, you cook for 10, like question mark. You cook for like however many your large kitchen table will fit, because that's how many people are currently there, probably. Um, yeah, but then the other people in the house, like 4 to 6 people, are all sort of on the move. So these houses become like way stations in the world, right? So this is like network state without a state. This is cooperation on a very minimal level. So no one really has to sell their stake in their particular one, because probably like where you're a citizen is easy. That's where it's easiest for you to buy, because the legal stuff and banking and so on. But you can travel to other ones. So yeah, I think the embassy network is like a nascent version of this. But yeah, I would ideally just have it as friends, where yeah, you're friends with or friendly with a number of different group houses, and it doesn't matter which bedroom you're living in. Like you take your stuff with you. There's a garden shed somewhere that has your like possessions that you just can't part with. But in general, you just go to the blue room of the house or the red room, or you use a calendar, and you can just go anywhere in the world, and your
Yeah.
ownership of one room gives you ownership of the other. Yeah.
Seems extremely manageable. the way you
Right.
put it, at least. I mean, there, and you know, part of this we have already, right? We have the network on Twitter, and like sort of
Yes.
a very, which is fascinating to me. I mean, life changing over the last few years, like this kind of sense of benevolent pre-selection, like a bunch of people that have just proven to a bunch of other people that they're hangoutable, you know, and like
Yeah.
and that's amazing. I think that's like a hugely undervalued currency in general, that
Mm.
there's like this sort of trust. It's just coming to my mind actually, that by attending a Jess camp, a TREEWEEK, a rich, you know, one of those, a vibe camp, and you just are exposed to a bunch of people, and a bunch of people have you marked as, yeah, this kid's all right, you know, and
Yeah.
then it's like, and so if we're talking about actually being a guest somewhere in the world, and this is something normally you only get through sort of uni, like
Yeah.
school, uni, Erasmus, in
Yeah.
my life at least, right?
Yeah.
And then even there, it's like this kind of frame of work, education. Unless I
Mm.
think in the UK, when I lived in the UK, people were a lot more communal. I think some this communal spirit that you carry, I kind of recognize from a
Hmm.
lot of UK student cats that I hung out with.
Yeah.
Like, way more communal than I am, like honestly.
Yeah.
But still, in your study, blah 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 world, you're more like, it's sort of a work effectivity sort of um, frame in which you are.
Yeah.
The
True.
same if you're an adult, and people get this communal feeling through work conferences. Like, I have a mate who's a startup guy, and he loves going to conferences, and I only clocked it later. I'm like, why do you love your work so much? No, this is his summer camp, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gamescom or whatever in the gaming industry. But to make my point, the camps that we do are actually in uh, very much a co-living spirit. So
Yeah.
actually you get like sort of this kind of this kid's all right stamp that I is coming from a much deeper sort of, oh, I have cohabited with this person, I have eaten, I have laughed, I've maybe they've had a bad day, and I'm like, yeah, they're all right. Yeah, you know, there's a way larger sort of exposure frequency.
True. Yeah.
So
Because
this kid's all right is like more you as a whole person, because that's what we're trying to do, right? Show up as whole persons,
yes.
instead
Yeah.
of like this guy who's got this job at the thing, or this guy who's, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Completely. Yeah. The Twitter network friendship situation is like friendship without a frame. So there's not
Very
the,
much.
yeah, or it's like it's a whole person frame. Yeah. So I think most of us had some kind of quest on meaning of life, or living a good life, or purpose, or fulfillment and happiness, and so on. And we've come together with that as like a background goal, and we're like playtesting every single way to live a good life that we can find.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And on Twitter, we're showing we can communicate. So we're showing that
Yeah.
we can not get eaten by an egregore, we can protect our mimetic space, and we can show generosity and humility in conversation, well beyond the average of a Twitter person, because we're more interested in living a good life than we are in like being right in a debate. And I think that we all used to be that. We all used to be the cool kid that would try to debate, or you know, or the rat, or you know, we would be the
Speak
person
for
that's
yourself, but yes, yes.
right, yeah, or the person that like tries to win in some way, or
Yeah. Yeah.
one, you know, I don't know,
Of
like
course. Of
shuts
course.
other people down without realizing it, I guess. And you know, we've
Yeah.
developed in life such that it's like it's much better to keep the conversation going than it
Mm.
is to score points, or score, or it might be social points. Like people are like wanting to socially win, or dominate or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, we've all showed up like in text form, showing that we can communicate well, like via this like crazy all to all network where everyone's
Mm.
normally evil, or not evil, you know, the worst comes
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
show that we can like restrain our worst impulses and encourage our best. So yeah, the camps. Well, I'm more or less memeing, I think, communal living with Jess Camp. This is
Yeah.
the thing, because my warehouse used to hold parties, and so it was a wonderful time of sharing space, and just being human and being alive and trying to follow our joy. So yeah, I love your point that you can say that this kid's all right from a whole person perspective,
Mm.
because you've eaten with them, which is so important. You've cooked for them. You've even maybe cleaned up after them, or have like looked after the vibe of a group, like as they breezed through, or like they helped you or they didn't. So yeah, we're all, our entire animal bodies and our
Mhm.
mammalian and social like monkey
Also, the kind of
brains
this the
connect.
kind of stupid unhinged stuff we do sometimes, which is again something that you often, unless you're like very young partying, it comes out in a sense, but like kind of um yeah, weird, like just doing something weird together, like I don't know, screaming, clowning.
Yeah.
I'm not even like high on the list for those activities. I'm just like, yeah, yeah, have fun, like,
Yeah.
but of course it's freeing. I wouldn't knock it, and then even that is sort of like this kind of mm, also like this memed or like shadow sort of thing coming out, and yeah, yeah, just the full spectrum thing. I think that's very good. Hey, do you want to tell me a bit about because you mentioned your warehouse? I think it's always
Mhm.
nice to have a bit of a personal background on people. I don't really know your story. I think a bit of like your personal motivation. You already talked about, you know, your philosophical, like living well sort of journey, the agency angle of not particularly wanting to be controlled, living freely or whatever.
Mm.
And I guess also, yeah, you mentioned that physical manifestation of your warehouse. Do you want to tell a little story about how this Jess that we know came about?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I lived in pretty negative childhood circumstances, so all of it comes from that. It's like I want to be independent, make my own decisions, understand what's happening, because I think that my caregivers did not have a strong sense of what was really happening to them, and so they couldn't make good decisions. So it all comes out of trauma, but you get to keep the skills, I think, is part of it. But yeah, I was in a very supportive monogamous relationship to get out of that parental scenario, but eventually that had played its course, and I needed to know what to do with myself. It was Saturn return is what the astrologers call it. I was about 25, 26, 27. It was all happening. So the first time I lived without a partner was in a group house, and it was just a random thing, but it used to be a bed and breakfast. And so there was a sink in the bedrooms, and the kitchen and cupboard space was completely insufficient for the number of people that were living there. So everyone tried to cook their own food and find a bit of space in the cupboard, but more or less, like if you're standing cooking, even just a very simple bowl of pasta, someone else would come and say, "Oh, are you cooking? Like, can you just put some more in for me?" And the third person and fourth person would sort of say this because there was only one cooker, and the kitchen was the size of a toilet. You know, it was very, very restricted. So needs must. So you end up with sharing. It's just so much easier, and so you pool your resources, you pool your time. So everyone who's cooking knows that they'll just serve up at least 5 portions. You know, whatever you have, you cook it. You don't save some. You also like
Mm.
share the milk. So in the end, someone just, someone says, "Oh, go and get some milk, we've run out of milk," because everyone's constantly drinking the milk. So it's almost like it was so intense that you can't stay precious about it. Like I could see that I was only hurting myself being precious about my own stuff. And what you could do instead was just, you don't have to feel guilty about drinking someone else's milk when you know that you're contributing what you can to the milk situation. So, you shove in 20 or 30 pounds a week of food into the collective like cupboards. And also your skills, you might cook. I quite enjoyed finding stuff at the back of the cupboard that no one was cooking and then cook it. And then
Classic raccoon behavior. It is
yeah,
known.
yeah, totally. Oh my God. But this was a beautiful place of sharing. It was in Bristol, so everyone shared. Like, if you put something on the wall, that means someone else can take it. To the point where, if you have something stored in your front garden, you have to write a note on it saying, "Please don't take." Like, this is mine.
Mhm.
Um, and the corner shop would give us their food when it was finished, out of date. So one time we had 2 barrels of potatoes. Another time we just had 5 loaves of bread. So we had everything on bread: toast, chili on bread, like whatever you could, like bread pudding. Anyway, that was my first experience. And then my chosen experience was in the warehouse, where it was that, but I chose who I was living with, more or less. And we were the B and LGBT. So I met everyone at BICON, which is conference for bisexual people. And they were polyamorous too. And so being able to live in community where, you know, your freak flag is normal to the others around you, that was beautiful. So again, it's kind of a needs must thing. Being a minority that people don't understand, like if you're trying to stay in a random group house, people really don't like it when you're non-monogamous. They really don't like it. They're just
Why?
like, what? Well, I don't know. I think that, well, for some people it's just their shadow, right? Like they just don't want to hear of this idea that non-monogamy exists. And they certainly don't want it in their face. So they don't want, like, they're imagining men trooping in and out every night. And it's like, well, that is in fact true. Like there will be 3 or 4 or X number of people that come to see me, stay over, and like leave again, and I might have sex with them. So yeah, like what? But similarly, people didn't like me being part-time. People
Part-time job
part-time
worker.
working. Yeah. I think because they thought I would touch their stuff while they were out, or
Did,
like
so you're sort of like out of sync, or what's the fucking...
I don't know. Yeah, or I
Okay.
would put the heat on while I was at home so their bills would go higher. Look, I don't know. I find it's very irrational, but yeah, it's just non-optional for me to live with like-minded people, or it was at that time. So because I was poor. Because yeah, I grew up in a single parent household in social housing. My mum did work, but like that just meant that the caregiving went to my grandma. It was all pretty terrible, and I've been trying to climb out of that ever since. So this warehouse, yeah, was 6 bisexual polyamorous people. So our dinner table every day was almost always 8 to 10, because there's always someone over, and like often it's just a friend, but like yeah, there was always someone hanging out.
Lots
We
of
had
things you can do with friends.
right. Someone actually just resurfaced a tweet. Tashin today just resurfaced one of my tweets that said sex is a normal part of friendship.
Classic Jess tweet. By the way, Tashin somehow resurfaced one of my tweets in
Okay.
which I was wearing a dapper green suit, and I'm like, thanks, Tashin. That's nice to see. It's like, what is he just scouring? Is he just like
Right.
spreading love? I mean, he's definitely putting his what do you say? His money where his words are, or his actions where his words are. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Thanks, Tashin.
Yeah, thanks, Tashin. Massaging us today.
Yeah, I was like, "Woo, that is nice. Thanks,
That's so
dude."
sweet.
Then
Yeah.
people were like, as if it was a current photo. It's like, Simon, you look great. I'm like, it was a year ago, but also good.
Oh. So yeah, we polyamory involves an awful lot of so radical honesty, honest communication, um, and I think some people would call it compartmentalizing, but you have to know how you feel, what is your shit, and what is not your shit. And that goes both ways. So other people's shit is not your shit to deal with, which is a relief. But other people's like need for help is also not your shit to deal with. So like you shouldn't try to help people either. You shouldn't try to change people, interfere, or offer support. Like basically there is this discipline and practice of like you've been able to understand empathy, you've been able to understand someone else's point of view, you can live in community, but then there's this like extra element where you then can also like be separate. You have to like be able to understand how to have boundaries is the phrase that we use for this, but it's like positive things too. Like, so you shouldn't jump to help someone when all they're doing is expressing where they are right now, because if you jump to help, that means you're trying to change. That means they won't say what's happening with them in front of you again if they don't want to be changed. So this trust in communication is this very
Yes,
interesting discipline to have,
that
which bled
is.
over into the group house situation so well. It means that you can live together as a community on many levels, basically.
Yeah, that's right. Interesting. I would like to discuss this because maybe I have a little bit of a take on it, and we can see if we agree or not. But I also grew up with my mom mostly, also with my brothers, and also with their father for a while. But basically, my mom's relationships have reliably been like non-functional, sort of.
Yeah.
So uh, I never had a very like the way that I now understand I would run a family, run as far as I run, but like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Lead, gently lead would be very different, partly stemming from those needs. And then indeed, you said the care goes out the window or goes to somebody else. I think for me, it went besides food was always there and good. So it's a huge love language of mine now. I noticed that. I tweeted about it too. I cook a lot for myself, and it's like an extremely solid bond of love with myself, sort of very good. Um,
Oh.
I've realized, yeah. And let's see, the but care went mostly out of the window in my case, I would say. And so I got a lot of like care and comfort and this sense of closeness through video games, I would say, which is like more the masculine kind of sense of achievement
Yeah.
thing. But okay, it's some sort of hormonal. It's not oxytocin exactly, but it's like, yeah, vasopressin or whatever, like some other good shit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
and yeah, also of course friends, music, but yeah, the true care, person to person care, was very absent.
Mm.
And then and it's partly because of this thing that I think you're sort of implicitly criticizing in what you're saying. You can tell me if that's right, which is this, yeah, this, I think it's mostly called codependency,
Yeah.
where like suddenly your mom's feelings, because you're a kid and you're like, you have no fucking boundaries, you're like just a blob of being, suddenly become yours, right? Like it's not non-distinguishable in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so you're like eating a lot of bad stuff that's adult, not yours, not meant to. If there was a good parental unit, they would probably hash it out and then sort of keep you separate from that
Right.
to a degree. That's
Yes.
always what I think would happen. Not
Yeah.
that you can't tell a kid that, hey, dad's feeling a bit bad today, but hey, how are you? You know, and that would be actually very much a representation of the nicely split sort of, hey, I'm feeling bad, go easy on me, but what's up with you? And da da da. And so, and
Yeah.
that's a sort of mature conversation you can have. That's partly
Right.
what you mean, right?
Yes, I think so because we don't have that modeled well, yeah, by our parents, as you said. And so like what I did was I did it in relationships instead. So I had an absent father, so I was always looking for daddy more or less. And
Mm,
so like putting a lot of like projecting a lot of that onto my partners. And so when I was, yeah, like when I had a long monogamous relationship, I was expecting a lot of support in a parental way from him
mm,
and or learning how to be, well, yeah, being dependent, being codependent, and just assuming that my thoughts are his thoughts, my feelings are his feelings. We're going to automatically like find things the same way, which actually erased a lot of his experience, and he erased a lot of my experience because
right.
when you're in that kind of relationship, it's sort of critical that you agree with each other, I suppose. And this feels
Mm,
like early romantic life. Like this is quite normal, I think. It's
and
just that that
mm.
can't work forever. And there's a place to go in terms of your growth beyond the sort of, I would say, simplistic movie storybook romantic monogamy rather than mature monogamy or, other kinds of relationships.
and I think it's also it's funny because there's some sort of, I don't know what's a good way to say this, like horseshoey thing where you kind of return to like the relationship that I'm in now that feels like um completely like offset to all my other relationships, like sort of like spiral dynamics, and then you hit the threshold of integrative, like yellow or teal or whatever you would call it, and you're like
Yeah.
across the integrative threshold, and it's like, oh wow, this is like and then there is a bit, and I was having a very um extremely romantic experience. That
Yes.
was, but that was like, and there were like, let's say, these codependent mm, things, motifs, let's say,
Yeah.
but they were like extremely joyfully consensual. They weren't like
Right.
these gripping at each other, but it was the joy of falling into each other, falling in love, right? But the joy of it, and doing it kind of consciously, and hey, look, we're so in love. How cool is that? Like,
Yeah.
this is like a one time, let's enjoy it, right? It's like, I mean, I'm in love, but I don't feel like I felt half a year ago. I mean, we got together a
Right.
bit less than a year ago. I don't feel like, I'm not listening to like 80s or like 60s, 70s, 80s funk and soul songs that are about love, and I'm like, yes, I know this. I had like a huge love song phase where I was like, now I know what they're saying, like a huge, like,
Right.
and then
Right.
so I had a so I had like a lot of cliches, and and yet a totally it was totally clear that I am me and you are you, and
Yeah.
all of these things are, and we're allowed to like kind of ravish, is that a word, each other, and like take each other, and also grab each other, and kind of be the current that takes the other one into a direction, because
Yeah.
that's all wanted. But it's like with so many things, only if you could technically not do it, if you had the ability to not do it, only if you have like sort of, right, you know what I mean?
Yes. I
If
completely.
that's the only thing you can do, and you're like, that's your only agency, aka non-agency, because you don't have a choice, then
Yes.
no, then that would be bad, probably. But I think we both had our
Exactly.
experiences of, well, we could not do this, but here we choose to. I
Yes.
think maybe that's a big difference also.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Like each time you learn a skill, you can transcend and include the previous stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like awareness of the fact that it's happening, and yeah, like you have the skills to make it optional.
Mm,
It's just like consent actually. Like if you can't trust that someone can say no to a certain experience, like you don't believe that they would be able to say no, then you can't also believe their yes, like because as you said, their yes is mandatory, because they have no awareness, no space
mhm,
around the thing to be able to actually make a good decision between yes and no, and have the courage to say no sometimes or whatever else. So yeah, one can fall crazily into codependent like shaped things as deeply as you like, if you can both trust that the other one is capable of seeing that that's the case. And then, when that goes bad, you can just be like, okay, we're going to stop doing that now or whatever.
mhm.
Yeah, you just have to have the awareness, the skills, and then you can really fall into it. And yeah, I think it can be more deeply like encompassing and romantic than even the first time potentially, which we don't have in our culture very much. We don't have it's all like, oh, the first youth love is the best one and your youth is the best time. And it's like, what? That's not true. That's only
No.
true if you never grew beyond that point and just got like
Yeah,
old.
yeah, true. And so you told this story about the, so, and then maybe to connect back to your story, and then maybe you can continue. I
Yeah.
thought, okay, it sounded to me like that the group living that you seem quite, so first you were in this kind of taking you out of, let's say, codependent, more like monogamous relationship,
Yeah.
and then you got out of that, you're in like group housing, so you're in which sort of a good bit of this codependency, it's a bit tainted, the word, but like you are codependent, literally what you were describing, you're eating the same food, you're
Yeah.
sharing, I don't know if you have better language for it.
Yeah.
Mm. But there it's actually the correct thing to do, right? Like this
Right.
behavior is extremely wanted there, and because presumably you're not all sleeping with each other all the time,
Yes.
you're um you're you have this natural boundary to your coexistence, so it's co-living, but you're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
So which once you're sexually involved, I think like a lot of boundaries just go out the window because you literally like enter each other and yeah,
Right.
have a more and then you go to polyamory as you described, and here you suddenly boundaries come into play because it's needed, it's part of the game, and that
Yeah.
from what I've heard is a very big playground for people to learn this kind of behavior also. Call it compartmentalizing or I
Yeah.
think you mentioned that, but I think then you said it's more like boundary setting,
Yeah, and knowing of the self as well. I
knowing
think
of the self. Yeah, because you can't be in this sort of structure if you don't know the
yeah,
self. And then
yeah,
I'll finish, and then I'm thinking a lot of people seem to be learning that there, and for me that is for me and my your journey as far as you described it in my head makes sense like that. It's like monogamy, group housing, but then okay, this polyamorous place where there's funnily enough a lot of maturity coming in there, and
yeah,
so that seems to mirror some development. That's just my interpretation. I'm curious how you see it.
absolutely. I actually was polyamorous a whole year before I moved out of my boyfriend's flat and went to live co-housing. So I actually did the polyamory first.
Aha.
But yeah, it folds together a lot. The book that I was following is called The Ethical Slut, and one of the things it talks about is like freedom for your partner. So talking about like what does love mean, and so like yeah, and there's a lot of worry about jealousy, for example. So it's like, well, do you think you own the other person, and like what does loving them mean? And so they sort of painted this picture of if you genuinely love someone, you want the absolute best for them. And it's not selfish. It's profoundly unselfish. You just want them to shine in whatever ways. So can you like let them like be their own person? And then when they are shining and they're happy, and let's say they have another partner and it's made them happy, if you then are sad, so suddenly it's like, well, what's going on with you? So it's a profoundly like self examination process. And you realize that anything that you've been projecting onto your partner, like your jealousy, is actually you. And so why do you feel inadequate? What's not in your life? Like you want yourself to shine as well. So you end up going through the process, you end up with different paradoxes, like yeah, you should be codependent on your housemates because you're going to eat together, share together, um, you're creating a space together, but you have to have these skills to make it function. So in a group house setting, you have like almost in like 26 relationships, because there's you to one and times six, and then there's like you, their relationships to each other, and like you as a like for to two of them, and you to three of them, and you as a group, and so on. So you're in this like insane web of relationships. So one thing is you need to look after your own energy, for example. So you have to only ever give what you can give, and as soon as you're pissed off about it, you have to stop,
Mm.
which is quite interesting. So like you have to clean the kitchen until you're annoyed, like, and you have to stop there. You must not be a martyr. You have to prioritize yourself. You have to say, okay, I'm sick of cleaning. It's causing me to think thoughts like other people aren't doing enough. And you have to stop that and be like, well, what would I rather do? Oh, I would rather be in my room making music. Okay, go and do that. And you might ping a message like, oh, hey, I've done a bit of cleaning, but I think the house still needs a lot more. Like, how, but then you leave it to the wind. Like, other people can say, oh, I'll do some. And so this boundary thing is a really subtle thing. It's really
Wow.
subtle. You have to be selfish. You have to, what other people would call selfish.
Yeah.
You have to know yourself, and you have to like contribute to the group only as much as it can make you feel okay or good or like it's a gift. And then you have to stop, and you have to prioritize self, and you have to go away and be in your private space. And yeah, interestingly enough, my experience is that most of us didn't sleep together in the household. No. But when we did, it didn't change anything, because if you already have what I've just described like in place. So yeah, like all of your relationships with your housemates are different. Some of them you don't get on with and you don't like so much. Some of them piss you off in certain ways. Some of them you just adore. Some of them are your friend. Some feel like a little sister or a little brother to you. And some of them you have sex with, but like it's not any different to all the other relationships that you have. Yeah, it's hard to describe this in words, but like one's life becomes full of relationships. So like the corner shop man and me have an intimate but very specific relationship, which is like he knows what chocolate I like and he knows when I'm on my period and like that's it. But like that's a relationship, and all relationships just have these beautiful gradations in them, and they're not they don't have to fall into certain boxes anymore. But yeah, the brutal requirements of both polyamorous and group living in terms of good communication, non-judgmental like activity, and knowing yourself and like keeping your own self healthy and happy and not blaming other people for stuff. Like, so if someone over cleans and works themselves into an angry rage and then they blame the other 5 housemates for not cleaning, like that is no, that is not how you should be thinking about it. It's quite toxic. It's just, oh, this is dirty. I don't like it. And it's all the I statements. I don't like it. I'm going to clean. Oh, I'm bored of cleaning. Okay, I'm going to stop. Instead, I'll just send a message and I'll go to my own space, which I know is clean. The end. And there is no it's your fault for my feelings. That's this like key thing. My feelings are your fault. And if you can keep to that, you can act in a way that's integral to you and you're nice to be around with others. Because if someone is constantly stressing themselves out by doing things nobody wanted them to do, instead of just asking someone else to do it, that's a horrible place to be. So yeah, this like polyamory and group houses is basically multiple relationships in different ways. And it's kind of sharing comes up, jealousy comes up, boundaries come up, your own energy comes up. So for me, yeah, it showed me, but like both situations showed me what's possible in human life. And I think that maybe we don't have enough constraints anymore to realize it's possible. And I think it's in the interests of capitalism as well to, or the way that we are right now, which is fine, is to be individual and have all our own stuff and never share anything and never work together, because then we're dependent upon goods and services provided by business. So we don't have the opportunities to learn this as much. But yeah, it's powerful.
In which this being dependent, co-dependent, that's just a word, but like dependency implies the co, right? Like the
Right.
sort of, and yeah, this is what we're learning. I think, again, just to repeat important thing, I think we said with the choice of sort of, I have 2 comments. With the choice of making it on your own, which often brings people a bit of agency. Not saying that you have to go there. I think I kind of tend to agree with you by now, but I went on a huge individualistic arc. I live in a pretty big apartment and stuff, and I feel like I am like that to a large degree. I need space. I think different people need different space. That's for people. Know thyself. You have to learn that for yourself, but. Actually, we're also now learning and practicing dependency with each other and trusting each other and giving that. The other thing I wanted to mention for completeness before we maybe move on a bit is one thing that I'm noticing is what you're describing, which is very well described in my opinion, for group living, polyamorous living. Also, actually, all applies to living with yourself. If you're considering a little bit of IFS, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of alter egos in my life, a little bit of then within my own system there is cleanliness. There's like a Stone Simon at night who makes a mess, and then there's the guy in the morning who cleans it up. Breaking news. It's both me.
Yeah.
God damn. So agreements have to be made. Guess who's not getting stoned that much, right? Like for many reasons, but there's
Yeah.
a bit of that, and the same with like somebody who makes the money and somebody who spends it, or and that there's a lot of very, even just very simplified, there's a lot of directionalities in you, a lot of yin and yang, if you will, and that all needs negotiation. And there's also like a really weird and funny thing where sometimes I think it's completely reasonable to say in relation to yourself exactly what you described previously, which is like, well, that's not on me, that's on
Right.
the other guy in me. But that's, like,
Yeah.
to sort of really be able to say to a part of yourself, yeah, that's not your fault, or but you
Yeah.
also can't blame anybody. It's just, will you ask for some help, right? And then
Right.
from this place, finding this finding good dependencies, or
Yeah.
something to add maybe.
Yeah, it's a beautiful point. Yeah.
And so do you
So
you have a story to continue,
one
right?
final point is I only advocate
Oh,
for these things because of the insane benefits. Like I never do anything unless you get really big
oh
reward.
yeah, tell me about it. But I would agree, yes, of course.
Right, yeah. So I won't go
There's
into them.
nothing moral here. This is just spiritual money in the bank in many ways, right? Like, or I
Oh,
don't know.
like
You tell
so
me.
good. Yeah. So just on the group level, like there were only 6 of us that lived in the warehouse, and we achieved things like every single month. Everyone said, "That's not going to happen. You're not going to do that. That's not
Like what?
possible."
Like what?
Well, one of my favorite parties was my birthday, and the theme was Top Gun because there wasn't enough masculinity in our community. So I was like, we're gonna be masked. But we decided to build an indoor sand volleyball court, and everyone said, "You can't do that." And this has been the thing of my life, where I'm just like, "What do you mean we can't do that?
Oh,
Like,
you
it's
can't just do things.
you
That's where
can't
it's
just do
from.
things. Let's go."
Let's
Yeah.
fucking go.
But yeah, I mean, one friend had a van, I had the will. Like I went and bought a whole bunch of sand for playgrounds. Someone else had the carpentry tools just to make a little bit of a sandbox that was only 1 foot high. You stepped right over it. But and we bought a volleyball net and filled a large square piece of wood that had a tarp attached to it with sand. And I was like, "What do you mean this isn't achievable? This is the most achievable thing." And yet, this was in our parties we had homemade hot tubs. We made our own. It was made from a pond pump, which will circulate water, a kitchen bin made of metal, and a heating element that you normally get in a household hot water heater tank. And so we just cycled water through this like heating spot and put it into a paddling pool. And suddenly we have like a 25-person hot tub made out of a paddling pool and a kitchen bin. And like this was one of the more basic things that we did. And the volleyball court was also a basic thing. And we had a large space and we had the will. And so we ended up having these what everyone describes as these insane, more than 100 people, like sex party, warehouse party things. But it was just £50 worth of green plastic vines from eBay and, a red rope light and a small sound system. And and it's because of the enjoyment, the energy, the contribution of a couple of people. Like sometimes it was just 3. So that's what I'm kind of memeing with Jesscamp as well, is that like when you have 100 people that just have empty rooms and some grass and somewhere to sleep and somewhere to eat, you can achieve like insane things. And that's what Burning Man is, I think, is just that like just the benefits are enormous. So you go through all of this like emotional like growth and turmoil and all this honest communication. It's really hard, but you get incredible benefits that you can make anything happen. So yeah, that's my little speech for why you would do this stuff.
Word up. Preach, sister. I'm really glad that I have a van in my 3-week budget, because you do need the will, but you also need a van. You
Yeah,
need a van and the will.
logistics.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
found
good.
that this year.
How do we get from your warehouse place to Jesscamp, to Twitter and Jesscamp?
It's a great question. So they redeveloped that warehouse into flats, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah. So some years later, Corona was just ending, and I literally was like, I miss my warehouse parties. I'm sad they don't exist, anymore, because it had been some years. It was before Corona, so we went to a normal house, much like the one I'm in, um, and then we moved to Lisbon, and the group broke apart. And yeah, my new friendship group was not the LGBT community of London, but the in group or teapot community of Twitter. So I literally just put it out there, like, does
How did
anyone
you
know?
find them, if I may ask for that story loop? How did you find Teapot and Twitter and the previously mentioned fame in group?
Yes, yeah. So I had my like meaning crisis when I was about 29, and that was in 2013. And I started reading meaningness.com, and
Ah,
it took me years to suddenly think, oh my God, maybe David Chapman's on Twitter. Like, maybe since this document is like not yet finished, he's around. And this would be a great use of Twitter, where you get to talk to a celebrity directly without knowing them, because we were in the world of Facebook, where you had to know everyone. Like, you'd have to add friends and they would have to
yeah.
add you back. So Twitter was the opposite. It was like, you know, anonymous to anonymous. And so you could speak to celebrities, and if you're lucky, they might talk back to you. So that was purely it. So I followed Meaningness, David Chapman, and I followed like Venkatesh Rao and Ribbon Farm. And I was reading the post rat stuff because I'd had a whole year of reading the rat stuff when I realized that feminism wasn't the be all and end all. Um, and so I've been on Twitter since 2015. And for me, yeah, I just caught the end of the Weird Sun like era, which was, I think, sort of our elders and the jokers of that time.
The weird what era?
Weird Sun. If you've not heard of it, then that's a shame. But it's before in group. Everyone had pictures of like the sun, but it was purple, or
Oh, Weird
planets, or
Sun
I
era.
don't even know how Weird Sun even happened,
No,
because I
I
came
don't
in right
know
at
what
the
it
end.
is. Because
So,
I've been on Twitter since 2008 due to esports and StarCraft. Like,
right.
really, yeah. But so and then Twitch, that was all a
Yep.
huge Twitter
Yep.
thing, and I joined Teapot with it was a bit of a trickery, because my old main, which is now very much dormant, had like 7-8K followers, so there was a bit
Wow.
like the Twitter follower status game was slightly in my favor, so it was easy. It was more easy to do with that profile, to talk to some people, and not being viewed as like a super lowbie.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I found it 2020, like Visa
Right.
and Co. So
Yeah.
just my side note, I don't
Yeah.
know the 2013, 14, 15. That's a whole nother time. That's hilarious. Though.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was following Rival Voices before he was even on Twitter. I was
How's
reading his
that
blog.
possible? Oh wow,
Yeah.
it's hilarious.
It was like blog chains, because Slate Star Codex has a massive blog roll with different blogs that he links to.
Ah,
So it's very much via the rationists, but I skipped pretty quickly into post rat.
wise.
But yes, different people had started joining at different times, and yeah, Corona just brought so many more people on,
Hmm.
and they saw us fucking around and liked it, so, and stayed, right? So,
Same here.
um, and yeah, what I like is the sort of post ideology feel to it. Like, it's whatever we were doing, we're now doing something else. Um, so like, we've got X incels, we've got X alt right, we've got X social justice like me, we've got people from everywhere. These ideologies that we now take to be not necessarily primary anymore.
Many X money, X tech,
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
one
yeah.
of my, like, what could we coin it, like this sort of alternative-less path, that only when you find the alternative you have true agency, because you have the choice, like we alluded to
Right,
before.
right.
Was one big thing for me was probably money. I still am big into money. I love money. It's so fun right now to also do budgeting and stuff.
Yes.
Realizing
Yes.
I'm quite the bona fide accountant in a way, I think, even though I've
Yeah,
always made
I love
fun of
budgeting
accountants.
too. Yeah.
But yeah, like kind of feeling like I can only be like have this agency, this power, this kind of elbow space sort of. I've got
Yes.
this YouTube video on it, the power agency love pipeline, because I actually believe that after
Mm,
power comes agency, but after agency comes love, and then you're like,
right.
you know, and for me, money was a huge part of that, just to buy
Yes.
myself into like an apartment or
Right.
I don't know, but there are many things you can't buy yourself into, so that's part of why I went away from the job and on sabbatical, because the money had its own cost, right? So
Yes.
yeah, and so
Which is time.
precisely.
Yeah.
So yeah, also an ex sort of. I think a lot of ex money people from the ex
Yes.
from the ideology of money, right?
Right. 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 Yes. Yeah. Because eventually, no amount of money is worth your time. I would
No
say
doubt, no doubt, no.
it's the one thing you're not going to get back. So, and yeah, once you have the breathing room, then it's time for like, oh, like,
Yeah.
what do I do with this money now?
What do
Or
I do
like,
with it? Yeah.
yeah,
Or
what am I
yeah,
losing,
yeah, yeah.
time wise to just having this pile of money that's getting worth less and less every second. So
Exactly, exactly.
yeah, that's
And then
true.
okay, so you yeah. By the way, great point. I've never heard that said. Sort of this. What did you say? Post ideological
Yeah.
character. I've when I described, obviously, like I described Teapot to many of my friends, and like it's a huge part of my life. Looking to the fucking phone every day, it's like
Right.
my
Right.
friends are there.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you on about? And it's like, Twitter. No, they're nice. And I've explained this what you call post ideologic. Fuck, I can't say this. Post ideological. There
Yeah.
we go. Um, factor a lot, but I would have never used those words. Like people who have ended a chapter, right? Who are like, or who've had a sort of rebirth, kind of the same sabbatical spirit. Yes, I
Yeah.
think sort of rebirth is maybe not a horrible frame.
I
Like
think it's
a
nice.
completed hero's journey, sort of
Yeah.
like a big win in life, and they're like, "What now?" You know,
Yeah.
and it brings so much ripeness,
Yeah.
maturity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not a coincidence that the youngest of us are like 25, 26.
Word.
And some of us have done 2 heroes journeys. So we're now like 37, 38, 40.
Yeah.
Um, and we're the ones, I guess, maybe without kids, because that's its own hero's journey that takes up several cycles.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, like there's been people who are younger and they've said, I'm going to go away and find an ideology. And I've been like, yes, you should. Good. Well done.
Okay.
Come
Well,
back when you're 28.
that's
Um,
funny.
so that's interesting. Anyway, Jesscamp. So Jesscamp. Oh yes, I had agency, but I learned that I don't have to own the money because yeah, this has been a hard thing for me. I've always wanted money because if I can control the money, I can make something good happen. But I have to instead I have to constantly convince other people with money that these ideas are good ideas, and that's really annoying. But nonetheless, like crowd money is good. So with Jesscamp and money, I was like, who wants to have a big party? And like because a lot of people said yes, I just said, okay, you have to send me a deposit because I can't afford the venue deposit without put your money where your mouth is because on Facebook events like yes means maybe and maybe means no, right? So on with Twitter I was like send me it was a very modest deposit. It was like 70 euros or something for a 3-day weekend like party. um But they did. Everyone did. Within hours, like 3 hours, I had like 100 I had PayPal freezing my account because of the suspicious activity.
Wow.
Which was great because there's all these different people suddenly sending me money. So I didn't use that again. And, yeah, I just found a stag party venue where part of their pricing scheme is to scam you out of your deposit, just to make more money, which is weird. But nonetheless, yeah, we had this 25-person Airbnb booked and I had the money for it all of a sudden. And yeah, the kind of group contribution again. And I suppose I just had a lot of comfort with how to throw a party, like how to walk into an empty, largish space and turn it into a space that's comfortable for a party, because I had done it for years in the warehouse. So, and it's very simple. It's very easy. One person can easily do it. And then if you've got a few willing helping hands, the stuff that one person can't do gets done in seconds. So I just had a lot of experience and a lot of confidence that I could throw a fun party. So you have the standing around in the kitchen, you have the cozy lounge, you have the dance floor, you have the never running out of toilet paper, have enough food, and then have a smoking area, like have a chill out room, and then have your own private space to go and hide in. And that's it. Like, just doesn't take anything else really. I guess the guests, yeah, but that was also preloaded for me. Like the teapot world is a preloaded audience, which makes it different to other events. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I think, yeah, I mean, I know you know this, but it just irks me immediately. Like audience, it's obviously much more, right? I mean, audience is not a negative term, but it, yeah, sometimes in the world of like reach and whatnot, it's like, no, it's like a group of
I
friends, right?
see. Yeah, but I got
Well, how
very
do you
little
see that?
reach.
How do you see that?
Um, yeah, like, well, when we're never like, there's not going to be a teapot event that has 8,000 people in it, right? Not necessarily. So you don't need 8,000 followers, or to get 8,000 people, you need 60,000 followers or whatever else. Like, it's not. Yeah, I have thought about scale before. And scales don't. You shouldn't have to translate between scales. Different things happen at different scales.
Right.
So my Twitter, I've deliberately been as horrible as possible and as my own self as possible, and have a slow burn followers. Like, I had less than 1,000 just a few years ago. I've barely got 4,000 now, and that has been burning as slow as I can, deliberately, so that anyone who's actually there is there for a reason. Like, they're there to see my whole self. But again, network effects. Like, if there's people who like know and trust me, even if there's only like 10, but they say to their most trusted friends, like, that's, and they say it to, like, one other, or two others, that's 20, 30. So, like, yeah, we actually don't have to worry about reach, I don't think. I think what you do have to worry about is demonstrating your own skills and your own integrity, because people have to trust you. Like, for the most recent Jesscamp, I had £50,000 in my bank account, and I had to pay a lot out from that, obviously, to make Jesscamp happen. But I could have just walked off with the community's money. I mean, it's not really worth walking off with that much money, but I could have. So there's a lot of trust, and there's a lot of trust for making something that's good. So all you can do is like model like how you are, and be honest about that, and flaws as well. And yeah, I think if people feel that they can be their whole selves with you, then they'll like, yeah, we all just get on with it. We forgive each other, we help each other. Um, in a way, nothing can go wrong. So if I turned around and said to the 120 people at Jesscamp, like, oh, this has gone wrong and I really need your help, like, it would be fixed immediately. So
The people would be happy to have true challenge or something, right? Like
right, yeah. Um, so I don't think reach is super important. Like, not in numbers. I think you can have outsized impact if you have like outsized personal integrity or something.
Mhm.
Um, and just, but yeah, honesty, communication. That's the way I go. It works for me.
I think so. No, I think so.
Yeah.
I I think so. Great. Yes. 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 Yeah. And to this topic, I mean, uh, yeah, because I was just because I like this so much. I think when I asked you one or two questions about TREEWEEK and or like the ticket vendor or whatnot, and you were like, well, you have you don't need discovery
Yeah.
because you have a we have a present audience. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I am always in this kind of like, the I really like what I'm trying to say is I really like about the community we have is that there are so many, like the whole thing is a stage. We're all on a stage. There
Yeah.
isn't a stage and an audience. I think that's what I'm trying to say. That's something that I'm trying to say because I explicitly value it so much. Because there are so many people who there is a reverence, but there's the reverence for friendship.
Yeah.
And I think that this topic has come up here and there of like status and whatnot. And for me, the effort of bringing people together in real life, which eliminates the larger than life factor. Because in real life, up close, nobody is larger than life. And there's an undeniable status game or something in follower count or something, whatever, cool. But there's for me, if the people who have Rich said it to me or actually I fought Rich on this at TREEWEEK, and then we had a great agreement that actually the suggestion for that came from him. So I'm happy to credit him there. Is that when status or whatever that means is attributed to hospitality, everything's good. Because hospitality means you include people and you take care of people and you give from your overflowing cup.
Yeah.
And you move, if you have some sort of influence and people listen to you a bit, then you can, and I think Rich has been demonstrating that very well, of like asking people to include others and specifically at Jesscamp too, where I was, and so on. And then for me, this is so important in my life. I'm not sure, maybe I could probably tell you why, but I don't know right now. But that yeah, there's just this jovial presence in friendship, or at least friendliness. Nobody's forced to be friends. I think being friends is sort of sacred, but
Yes.
friendly and well-meaning towards each other, and polite even, and open and authentic, and all these things sometimes take from each other a bit, but so there's a sort of overarching nice circle of I don't know, goodness, honesty, truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a
It's
real great way to meet. And I think there's like an abundance of that in the community we have, which is
right.
like I'm intently grateful for. Like it's amazing.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the so metta is the Buddhist practice is translated as loving kindness, but it's also sometimes translated as loving friendliness. So yeah, I think you quite rightly said the overflowing cup, right? I think that potentially a lot of us have like had some success with our healing journey or with our okayness. Our okayness is deepening and deepening, and so now we have spare capacity, and yeah, the desire is to share that from a place of like love, basically. And I think compassion comes up a lot with me as well, because it's like if someone's having a hard time, it's like I've been there and I've known how crappy that is. And like when love meets like misery or sadness or suffering, it becomes compassion. So yeah, this it's a very low key urge, I think, but this urge to just provide something as a gift out of love to a community that is very friendly and loving is the place where it should be coming from, which is really nice, and that's what makes it work well. And it's really rather beautiful expression of the thing. um, so yeah, so any if you get given according any, yeah, as you say, any like people might listen to what you have to say or something like that, you've been given that because of your own opening and like yeah willingness to like try stuff and be vulnerable and so on. and not because you asked for it or wanted it or craved it. It's just, yeah, you've put yourself out there and you've got experience, and you're coming from a place of love. Yeah, so I feel like I'm finding a whole tribe of people that are doing this, particularly at Vibe Camp. There's a bunch of people that run welfare, essentially the welfare area of Vibe Camp. It's known as the Tea House, but it is welfare, which is interesting. No one really talks about it.
Would you like to talk about it? What does it mean in this context? What does welfare mean in this
Well, I
context?
think welfare was invented at Burns, but it was basically like having a team of people that look after people who are having a bad time.
Uh-huh.
So it's typically drug stuff, like someone who's overwhelmed. But in our world, we're very sensitive, right? We're all introverted, traumatized autists. So
more or less.
yeah, in some dimension, there's
No,
that. So we can easily get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So providing care and space for when someone's overwhelmed is what welfare is, but also physical. So, you know, who is in charge when someone like breaks their leg, and who is going to help when bad things happen, basically. So welfare, yeah, and so it's got its own dedicated team in larger festivals. And like with Teapot, it has been self-organized, obviously. So there's this like core team at Vibe Camp, but like I see it happening at Jesscamp, like background, and my volunteers are background doing that all the time. They know that that's their background job, but yeah, there's the tea house at Vibe Camp is like a squish area, so you can go and lie down and cuddle, but it's also nicely decorated. It's got nice music, and they serve tea, which is like a non-hallucinogenic hydrating fluid that has ceremony to it and gravitas. And out of that, and like secretly, so like all the tea house volunteers have optional training to sit with people who are having a bad time, having a bad trip. Maybe they're having a schizo breakdown. Like there's all kinds of things that could be happening. And so how do you hold space and be a loving and friendly presence that is not caught in the same problem as the person is caught in, and you are basically sitting there being normal while they freak out, and you're an anchor for them, so that they know that no matter how far freaked out they get, there is a normality in the process of a person like sitting with them. So yeah, so there's like more than 12 volunteers was at the tea house at Vibe Camp, and each person who was there had this flavor to them of like wanting to just give and be having enough okayness in themselves to be able to hold okayness for someone who's not okay. And I find that organizers of events have that as well, and they have it on this like big scale where they don't mind being the person that takes all the shit or all the praise, which is also difficult to take. So like being the avatar of the event and being the conduit through which it exists, it's work. So yeah, seeing the people doing that work, yeah, they tend to have this like loving, giving quality, and it's really nice to have peers in that and to see that flourishing and see people step up.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think the hosting a bunch of parties for just friends in Berlin, but then also more and more teapot people being around and widening the casting a widening net of invites as well, and being like, yeah, I reckon I could do that, like, and also seeing the great Jess Camp 2. I obviously wasn't at number 3, but yeah, that was really up my alley and changed my life in many ways, I would say. And being like, yeah, that's a good thing, And then, of course, a lot of people in and around Berlin, Teapot and adjacent people, and I was like, of course, we need to put up a gravitational field here.
Yes.
That does this. So yeah, currently in the midst of the yeah, I'm lifting a heavy load right now, putting the finances together and stuff.
Right. How's it
For
going?
TREEWEEK. Yeah, it's okay. I actually wanted to ask you later, of course, to probably have maybe one look over the budget if I'm forgetting something.
Sure.
Um, and other than that, yeah, I have great help. Speaking of dependency, literally would not be doing this if I couldn't talk to Roland Positive Loop uh, about the budget and doing some maths with him, or talking
Yeah.
to maybe about her experience with Vipol and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so we've got a great team. We've got a great location.
Yeah.
I
Have you
wanted,
got a venue?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, great, good.
That's why we like I have a venue since about 14 days, and I was like, oh, it's coming in late September, of course, starting at the 24th. Um, and then I was like visiting my girl in Poland, and I was like, kind of need a venue now. Like, if not now, then it's getting a bit late. And found like the perfect thing I wanted to with the. It has trees because it's TREEWEEK,
Good.
and they're gonna look really nice in late September. It
Great.
has a lake next to it, and more lakes close to it. I heard that the lake on location might not be the best for swimming, but like one that's really close, 20 minutes walk or something, is great for swimming
Okay.
if people dare at the slightly later time in the year, but should be fine.
I'm gonna dare.
Yeah, me too,
Yeah.
for sure. It has a sauna in the house.
I must have been dreaming about TREEWEEK this whole month.
Yeah?
Yes.
Did you
I
dream
was
that into existence?
well, no, not into existence at all, but I keep dreaming about being at events,
Yeah.
and that's all I dream about, and it's like, do I have any other dream? Like, come on. I was in the sauna with someone from Teapot, and I was like so I tweeted Jesscamp needs a sauna next time because I was like, "This needs to happen." But clearly
Come
already
to
we have a sauna.
TREEWEEK. We have a sauna in September. Plus the lakes. I mean, come on, you can hit the
Yeah.
lake and hit the sauna. We
Oh,
have a self-organized kitchen, of course, but I have a head chef who is my brother, who's a great cook, and we have a long history of cooking together. So you'll get the Oler food experience with
amazing.
some nice influence from others as well. I
Yeah.
have some, and then there's the kind of special edge where I have some of my family coming as well. Probably my grandparents, my mom, my aunt, my cousin, and my brother, of course.
Yeah.
And
You're gonna
so
sell out, within seconds. This is gonna be a mad scramble.
we're doing a bit of like closed early bird invite list. That's what I'm working on right now, to also
Okay.
test the ticket sales and stuff in a bit of limited capacity. And yeah, I'm like, I wanted to have it done literally yesterday, and
Yeah.
like I've worked on it today, and like it's not done. It's just like, how do I do it? Because I'm going to do a lot of things manually. I'm going to process payments manually, I've decided.
Okay.
Bit of a hassle, but I need to get used to. It's going to be a good lesson for me. Yeah, because I've never had like in my sort of business, I never had like this kind of um, many invoices or something. And
Right.
I'm a registered business in Germany, so I need to be talking to my tax advisor a lot. Just gotta get it straight, you know. That's
Yeah.
also, TREEWEEK is also a little bit of, TREEWEEK is many things. It can be work week, it can be food week, it can be friends week. It's a little bit of normie week because of the kind of crossover with some friends and family. Can also be like money week. For me, it's a very money positive experience.
Yeah.
Um, as you know, hopefully it will be abundance week. All the
Right.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's I'm feeling very good about it. 50 beds.
Cool.
Uh, I guess 43, not counting my team.
Yeah.
So, and 25 camping spots, 5 RV spots. So it's going to be a good mix.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
this message is sponsored by TREEWEEK. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. Do you know, like venue space is now what I'm really coming up against. Yeah, it's cool that the US has so many like summer camp venues like for kids, like hundreds and hundreds, and but like you still need to find one that isn't for kids, which is interesting.
Ah.
So you know, Vibe Camp have managed that, which is amazing. And the place is a bit run down, and you know, clearly they're taking on these events that they might not even want to take on, so because they have a liquidity problem as well.
Mhm.
But finding venues that are like relatively easy accessible, um, allow adult groups, like allow noise and have some facilities and can host more than 200 people, like just doesn't seem to exist. Or rather, this is my challenge for this year because, yeah, I'm aiming for next August to give myself time to actually find these spaces. And like quite often you can find one thing, but not the other. Or yeah, you can kind of find camping, but then it's so far away you'd have to get buses, and it's a 3-hour drive on these buses to the place, which is kind of something I would ideally avoid, but maybe I can't. Or if it's like residential and you've got nice beds, nice bedrooms, there's individual bedrooms. It costs an absolute ton, and it's only set up for like corporate conferences, and they're trying to charge you £1,000 a person for one day, and that's not great either. Like, yeah, so the middle ground. Ugh, like the only places I know of that can house people in individual rooms and have some grounds and some nice shared facilities is monasteries. Yeah, but I don't think even those have 200 capacity or 300 capacity. So
What are the hippies doing in your region? Because I think that place that we're going for TREEWEEK, it's called Blaue Blume. It's like, I mean, around Berlin, in Brandenburg, like all the Berlin, like out of Berlin expats, right? Like the
yeah,
people that leave Berlin to be in the countryside,
yeah,
you know, like some parental slash hippie types. And they're like exactly pretty much what you're saying. Yeah, we love, I don't know, retreats. So let's run a retreat center essentially.
yeah.
And then, of
Well, they
course, it
do, but
has
it's only
the factor of great taste. Is also I haven't visited the location yet, but the feeling of having a sauna and it looks very nice and there's some aesthetic. And by the way, sorry, quick comment, but fucking, I found the location and then I'm like, okay, it looks great, I want it. And
yeah,
then I wrote the email and I was like tapping my fingers, right, and then between the moment of writing the email and deciding I need to call them immediately, actually, to get
yes,
like the and I was like reading the website, and then they have like a blog or something, and it says on the blog in German, but it says the primary goal of our sort of whatever the structure is that they have, like a Verein is the German thing, like I don't know the word now, um, but that little non-profit or whatever. The
mm.
primary purpose of this endeavor is the reimagification of the world, and I'm like, bro,
Wow,
those are the people. And then I
yeah,
was like, I need to call them. And then,
yeah.
yeah, secured the bag, but yeah. So my point for, I don't know, some hippie type spaces that, yeah, I don't know.
They're all too small.
Yeah,
Is the
right. You're
problem.
at a different scale.
Yeah. Yeah, the scale that I'm at now is like to book out an entire holiday park or campsite or like a big one. Um, and they're just not amenable to that idea at all, I
Hmm.
don't think. Or yeah, too run down um, or it's too much money. So the UK is just sewn up so tight in terms of land value, that it's insane. So there are some like holiday parks that are closing down that have like 300 capacity that I would love, but they're £10 million and have to be demolished and rebuilt. So like yeah, it's not possible. Some other events have used these holiday parks where there's like little chalet type things, and they're 2 stories, and there's rows and rows of all these like small family chalet buildings. But yeah, other festivals have already like saturated them. So they go in like March or or December when it's freezing outside. And yeah, somehow they're getting into those, but yeah, those companies are failing and the infrastructure is really old. It's really dangerous. And yeah, I don't know how to find a successful campsite that will like accept our taking over the place. And they also don't like you to cater for yourself because that's how they make their money as well. So yeah, and it's always, what about the neighbors? What about the neighbors? There's always some NIMBY that just can't handle noise for one night nearby. So yeah, I might have to go outside the UK again. But anyway, this is just me complaining. I need to look more, and I think that maybe my life for the next few months is just phoning every venue, driving around the countryside, just being like, where is this campsite or caravan holiday home place that wants 30K?
Yeah.
I need to just wave the money around like, who wants the
Yeah.
money?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with having a earnest complaint, right? So may it be a call into the world that brings back what you need or what we need.
Yeah,
And
I'm not sure how to make the call. I'll do it on Twitter, but I think I need to do it on LinkedIn.
maybe, yeah. And
Yeah, I'm not.
also,
Yeah,
if you're feeling like the UK options are exhausted, then we can always have a look at, I mean, Germany, Poland, like kind of, because I don't know. I mean, I think the Germans are like super outdoorsy,
right.
and
Yeah,
I don't
more of a
know.
culture for that.
Yeah. Maybe that's something.
Yeah, I've heard of a Burning Man style campground in Sweden, where they own the place and there's like infinity camping basically, but
Aha.
it's
Is that
far
where they're
away from an
doing
airport. So
some? No, what was it called? A lot of people are going there late July. The
yeah, is
festival.
it? It's not somewhere. It's I don't
Okay.
remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
it's
neither.
after nowhere, isn't it?
Yeah. A
Um,
bunch of the Berlin crews is going there. Yeah.
yeah, so I would be interested to know how easy it is to get there and whether, yeah, it's logistics. Like my life has
Yeah.
become logistics. Like they
Yeah.
say there's only one problem and it's the coordination problem. And if you solve
Yeah.
the coordination problem, then it's the logistics problem.
Right. Yeah.
Just
Wars
physical.
are won, not with
Oh,
whatever. Also with logistics. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like the amount of atoms, like the amount of matter that you need to move from one place to another to service 300 humans for 3 days
Oh
is a
yeah.
very large amount of
Yeah.
physical matter. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine it. I'm very happy with my 50 on the top end. If we have a lot of campers, 80 or whatever, then
Right.
um, that's like that seems manageable. And like, yeah, I'm. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm.
Jesscamp 2 is where it stopped being manageable. Or rather,
Yeah,
that was the last
it
manageable
was. Yeah,
festival.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation we could have about like scale, and I think it's good. Um, okay, I think we need to stop very soon. I think I have
Yeah.
two questions for you. You seemed a bit on the edge of your seat. Also, literally, possibly.
Yeah.
Um,
I
are
keep
you all right
turning to see.
for two more questions?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
I? Yeah. Okay. So one is, since we've been doing TREEWEEK, sitting on it with Roland, and so it's like um, we're both like pretty systemy guys, we're like tinkering, we're like, this is nice. So we thought, why do we need to have a like nah, payment provider?
Yeah.
Why do we need to ask ourselves all these questions? So a question to you as a seasoned Jess camper. um, do we need, like, we need ideally more camps, especially if there's a scale thing, right? Like, okay, it's good to
Yeah.
have the big camp, which might be yours, but then, like, you know small iterations are also very good, for intimacy
Yeah.
purposes and blah blah blah, and also just like you're saying, like, logistics are like maybe magnitudely easier. Is there a sort of playbook how to make your teapot camp, because we thought it would be great. It would be great if there was like some platform or something where you could just click some box and it's like how many people, how many, what's the pricing, and then it like makes an event for you, sort of. I mean, but we
Oh,
we had the idea briefly that, I mean, especially I think you've done a great job. At least for me, it arrived like that with me, with Jesscamp 2, the one I was at,
yeah.
with this kind of laissez-faire attitude, where you're like, here's a kitchen, and here's some food, and here's some cereal, and here are your rooms, and here's a garden. I'm gonna be up there because I got some private things to do, like very much the spirit of Jess at Jesscamp 2 for me.
Yeah.
Not that you weren't present, but you were also absent. Very great. And I was like, holy shit, it works. We're all adults, there's like
Yeah.
shit happening by itself. And with that premise, that gave me very much these low expectations were for me like an easy invitation for me to be like, I can do this. I mean, that's how I do my parties at home anyway. It's
Yeah.
like, here's a kitchen, here's a living room, here's a bedroom if you need a timeout, and
Yeah.
let it rip. That's not on me. I'm the walls, you're the life. You're
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
plants. Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, for me, I try to reconnect with why do I want to do this? Like, and it is to throw a party. That's it.
yeah, yeah,
So whenever something gets stressful, if you just remember that it's a party, it's meant to be a party,
mm,
um, that can sort out a whole bunch of tangles. Um, so you can't make everyone have a good time, for example,
no,
at a party. People are going to have the time that they have and stubbornly refuse any help to change the time that they're having as well. And that's obvious when you think of it as like a house party. So yeah, that's all I ever do really personally is remember that it is it might be a bit overgrown, it might be a large party, but that's all it is.
mm,
So it's about fun, it's about joy. Yeah, and like as you say, like you've provided or we've provided the shelling point, right? Like we've said it's this time, it's this place, it's this location. Logistics have been provided. There's infrastructure, there's toilet paper, there's food. There's a plan, or there's the pretense of a plan. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah. Like, I found at Jesscamp 2, a lot of people were a little bit unsure of something, and they would look over at me, and if I looked comfortable, they would and looked back at them like yes, like they would just do it. And it felt like a sort of yeah, it's like permission giving, where it's like I'm the only one that can hold everything in my mind about what the venue is allowing, what is okay and stuff. And so if anyone was unsure with what they were doing, they could just look at me and be like, "Can I do this?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." So like just holding like okayness is again
mm.
the entire job, I think. But yeah,
And
as to a specific playbook,
yeah,
I events is interesting. Like I don't it's difficult to know whether the community should know how it works or how it doesn't, because I obviously make a salary from this thing. And
hmm,
I think that my joy would be to bring the cost of Jess Camp down and down and down. But you kind of have to like yeah, the only reason why I wouldn't do a playbook is to hide how easy it is and how profitable it is.
Jessica. Okay.
But it's not. I published the figures from last year, and most people were quite worried that that would not be a sustainable amount for me to live on. And I did have to work extra, and I will have to work extra this year. So I think it's profitable because I come from a single family home and from a council estate. Like other people would consider it not even worth their time. So it's
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, it's maybe I should put a playbook together. But I honestly think it's only 5 things, and it only takes like 3 different text conversations to cover everything that's needed, and
Mm.
the rest I think should come from the person. Like, what does their joy want to have included, right? Like, how do you want it to be? Um,
Do you want to share, despite your potential competitive disadvantage, the three text conversations you need to have, or whatever? Is that something you can say?
Yeah, I think so. So it's more or less it's like venue. Venue is the only problem. Once you have a venue, then you're ready.
That's right.
Even
I
if
noticed that too. It makes you
yeah,
go as well. It's like
it
you
makes
you
you go.
have the
Yeah,
child, now you need to feed it, right? Like
yeah. Now
totally.
now
Like
it's obvious.
yeah.
Everything is obvious once you have the venue.
Notice that.
Um, because you also have to decide the date with the venue as well. So, the date and the location and the canvas that you're going to be projecting onto are all fixed by the venue being ready. So that's the ultimate problem. And once that's over, like you've got almost nothing to do after that. Um, so I don't know if I could talk more about that because the last two Jess camps have been quite easy to find a venue. Last three. This one is going to be difficult, so maybe I'll have more to say about venue. But venue is critical, and quite often they're booked up in advance. So you have to not have ADHD with venues. You have to
Yeah.
hopefully.
Hit the
Well,
button.
you've managed to
Yeah.
get it.
I was lucky as hell, and I
System
had
works.
help. But yes,
Yes.
but that's part of the game too. You got to know how to. I was yeah. And
Yeah.
then what are the other two conversations or whatever you need to have?
Well, and then I think between us it was like how do we take people's money? Like how do we crowdsource the funds? Which is difficult because there's legal stuff. So in order to process card payments, you have to use someone who's legally allowed to process card payments. And yeah, to make it smooth for the customer, you have to be able to process all kinds. And so that's why the card payment bottleneck is the bottleneck. And even with people just sending me money into PayPal, I had my account frozen because it was suspicious, even though it's perfectly normal for a group of 25 people to book one venue and have a party and then they all pay one person back, like a stag do, like a hen do.
Yeah,
It still raises red flags because again the world of money is the world of power and it's tied up as tightly as possible, so they will try to stop you doing anything. um anyway, so figuring out that, so how do you sell your tickets, how do you tell people what the event is like how do you take people's money? So that's the other topic, I would say, the second topic.
hmm
um and then the third one is like when you actually get there, like the planning for the event itself. So the logistics, what do you need? So I normally have a little speech about like eat, sleep, shit, like make sure the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is covered basically. So people freak the fuck out if they think there's not going to be enough food or they're not going to sleep well or the toilet paper runs out. That's it.
sounds about right.
Yeah, so apart from those three, everything on top of that is golden, so that's good, and everything on top of that is more or less your guests can do it. And so just giving people the permission to ask their guests to do things like bring stuff, create the workshop timetable, um, bring all the fluffy things that are good, so instruments, sound systems, that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, so those three are simple in of themselves in a way, and then kind of not in a way, but that those are the only three things that running an event does, especially since we don't have to do any marketing to our audience. Like most
Yeah, that's
events,
what you said to me. Yeah,
yeah, they're trying to sell the tickets, but we don't have to do that. We're going to sell out immediately. So that takes a big chunk of event management off, I think. And so we also don't have to do the hype cycle because there's a catch-22 of like no one will come until everyone else knows who's coming. You have to know what the event's going to be like before it happens, which is another catch-22. But with us, we don't have to worry about any of that because we have a sense what it's going to be like. It's going to be good. People trust that whatever it is, it'll be good. Also, it's a party. Also, it's self-created, and they will buy the ticket before they know what it is. And we have access to them already. So that is probably one of the hardest parts of normal events, and it's not present for us. So yeah, like it's kind of that easy. Like a year in advance you book a venue, like 2 months in advance you choose a ticket provider or you take you set up a payment system that has all the information, and then like 1 week in advance a whole bunch of logistics happens. But in between those things there's literally nothing to do, and then you just like reap the benefit of the
of the
yeah.
joy
Yeah,
also.
just enjoy
Yeah.
life. And people say, "Oh, you must be busy with Jesscamp," and I'm like, "No,
Nope. Call me.
yeah, there's nothing to do because you have to have a sense of what will happen logistics wise. You do have to
You have to
plan all that.
pre manifest or premeditate it a bit and imagine, got some
Exactly.
people coming from the US probably. What will their experience be? And like,
Yeah.
I'm usually quite high touch, white glove with things, so I have a lot of like communicative capacity. I text 20 people every day anyway, so
Yeah.
I see this going quite well. Thank you for sharing that. I think in the spirit of agency and possibility, I think the more the merrier. I don't think it will take away from you. I believe it. I think.
Oh
I,
yeah, no, I
uh,
agree. No, other events should definitely happen. It's
yeah.
I'm only shy about releasing the fact that, you know, about half the ticket price is my salary.
I appreciate that you do though, because you just did, and I
Yeah.
think, I mean, some people know, and I think that that's also the spirit of what I said earlier. Of, well, we're all equals, and you're doing a
Yeah.
service, and I also had a big thing about um, I need a salary from TREEWEEK. It's going to be um, I think I consume or like use more money than you. My lifestyle is more expensive than yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to fund my full-time life, but I don't want to. I have plenty of capacity besides this, and
Yeah.
but I can't go break even on this, and so
Yeah.
the ticket prices do reflect a relatively um, luxurious, hopefully, venue, and
Yeah.
the amenities, and like definitely enough food, right? Like a good, like we'll have enough food. And
Yeah.
also we had the idea that which we're gonna do, which is every the because I can say I want to earn this, so the ticket price needs to be this high, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be more than this. That means all generosity, all donations on top, which I think you offer, we will offer as well, will go A, obviously to the low income tickets, but
Yeah.
B, if we have even more than that, will go to as a starting budget for low income tickets for TREEWEEK 2, which
Right.
is knocking on the door already. I mean, if it
Yes.
goes as well as I hope it does, then we'll be live again in spring, right? So,
Yeah.
well, one thing at a time, knock on wood and keep the whatever horses in the stable, whatever the fucking saying is. But
Yeah.
yes, so that's good, and I'm glad to have you as a great pioneer of this kind of event with your experience. Glad to hear your story as well,
Yeah.
and it's
Thanks for
unbelievably.
asking.
Oh, of course, man! It's so valuable what you do, and you're changing lives. I mean, you changed mine, and one consequence from that is I should do this too,
Right.
because I'm, like you said, I have this kind of profile, this kind of unbothered profile. So I know
Yeah.
I can do this. And by the way, you want to throw a party, and my sort of core motivation, I think I also put that on the page, is um, I never have all my friends in one place. I never lived in a group house. I
Right.
never, I mean, I did like for half a year doing Erasmus, but that completely fizzled. Um, I have such good friends, and they've always been half online. Like now, I always have like an online sort of compartment of friends, and then I have one friend with a kid, one friend who works there,
Yeah.
and I'm glad to have a bit of a community and circle building in Berlin. Thank God, but yeah, I want, like, for me, it's a huge bowl to make a friend salad in.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah, and I'm thinking with Jesscamp 4 is that all the online people have met each other enough times now, and so we can now accommodate, like, non-Twitter people, basically,
Yeah,
that friend that would be awesome, it's just that they're not on Twitter, but they, are very similar to us and our values, and yeah, so we can start to cross the streams, yeah, like, bring
I'm
in.
doing it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so I think that's great. I think that's needed, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it'll water it down and all become incoherent, but
I don't think so, especially if your friends are cool. I think that's what I've learned from throwing parties the way I do, which is at my house.
yeah,
Which is my biggest fear was never will we have food, will we have drinks, because I know I can take care of that, but it's will the people get along. And
right.
I literally, unless people were like the rare expressive cunt kind of weirdo at my party where I'm like, okay, just not gonna invite them again. But
Yeah.
like that come obviously not directly from me because I wouldn't invite these people. Um,
Yeah.
right. And so if I have sort of invite power, and I trust my core team with, you know, their recommendations of who should come expressly, then I mean, what I'm trying to say is the people are always get along,
Yeah.
because it's you as the host who, like, if you're our conversation from before, sort of values are aligned and you're not making a compromise by inviting someone, but you're like, no, that's my dog
Yeah.
or my dog ass, then then yeah, the people that you like are gonna get along because they all
Yes.
like you, and if you have a consistent spirit that you're spreading out, then they can connect at the very least around that spirit,
Yeah.
and that's why it's so important to also be able, like, be available for people, like, be that conduit where people talk about what brings you here, or how
Right.
do you know Simon, or are you one of the Twitter people, or who are you, and then, wow, you're Simon's grandma, okay, interesting, what was that like? You know, like, there's always a conversation to be had about you as a host,
Yeah.
and then it branches everywhere. But that's
Right.
part of the magic we make it as hosts, is like, I mean, of course, with the specific Twitter thing, it's like Twitter is the sort of like our community is sort of the
Mm.
big host in a way. But even at any party, I mean, I think this is also, I want to encourage people to host their friends, you know, to bring people together,
Yeah.
and to not be afraid that your friends will get along, like, trust, like, if
Yeah.
there's enough individual sort of history with each one, and you can mediate with them always, you know all of them well, you love all of them, what's going to go
Yeah.
wrong? Nothing. So
Nothing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Jess, we have to go. I have a last question for you, not a big one, but I want to ask you for some last words in the podcast spirit. You know, I want to basically, on my list of questions that's very small. I have the word magic. I just wanted to. I know you care about magic, and I thought we could leave this with some sort of spell, and you can say something about. Um, well, I know you're living a magical life, so maybe you can say some parting words, some
Oh,
magical
crumbs.
ones.
I don't know. Um,
What do you think about it, or how you see life right now, or whatever?
yeah. Oh, crumbs. I do not know. And I think that might be part of it actually. Like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Um, yeah, I think in some sense acknowledging that I don't do things, I don't manifest things, I don't like I feel like I make that happen, but I don't know if that's true. So I'm trying to listen more now to the pullings, yeah, the fact that previous causes and conditions are now like leading to other causes and conditions, and I wasn't really in charge of it except for, well, vibes. It's vibes. Oh my god. um yeah, just like in every single moment, like how would you like the vibe to be? um might be a good way to navigate. I'm not sure. There's like choices, I guess, but I think it's fake. I think choice is fake. We're just being like, yeah, we're just surfing the waves, and yeah, it's kind of up to you how you feel about the surf today. But yeah, don't forget you can just do things, because yeah, doing something like crazy is like in a way exactly the same as just doing nothing. Like nothing lasting will actually happen. There's almost like no consequences that are like long consequences. So hopefully that's freeing. Where yeah, like I think a lot of people are tempted to just um not do something in case of the consequences. Um, but it's fine. Consequences are just as impermanent as like silence or whatever. Yeah. No, it's a bit confused, but just vibes. Just vibe.
Just vibe, bro.
Just vibe, bro. Yeah, and I guess like with magic, we think it's the doing, but there's yeah, like the doing and non-doing are kind of the same. So if everyone's
Yeah.
kind of currently not doing, then go and do and see what actually happens,
And vice versa.
and vice versa. Yeah.
After agency comes love.
Yeah.
Things move themselves then.
That's really lovely.
Good stuff. Love you much, Jess. This was very fun.
You too, Simon. Yeah, thanks. I've had a great time.
Yeah. I'll talk to you soon, and
Speak
yeah.
soon. Okay.
Yeah. See you later.
See you later.
Ciao.
Ciao.